Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Comforter Sokoro, and I've been told to take us through the EIA flowchart. That's the Federal Ministry of Environment, Environmental Impact Assessment flowcharts. Okay, so I hope that's not confusing, but I would shoot the flowchart now so that I can dive straight into business. All right. So here we go. We have the EIA process flowchart from the Federal Ministry of Environment. This presentation is targeted at the Nigerian procedural guideline for environmental impact assessments administration. All right, so before we dive in, I would like to just, some acronyms are showing up on this chart, and I would like to explain what they mean. First, we have the EIA. This means Environmental Impact Assessment. And then over here, we have the FS, the Feasibility Studies, or Feasibility Report, or Feasibility Assessment. Usually, this will show us the environmental, social, and economic aspects or benefits of the project. So we have the TOR, that's the terms of reference. We have EIA, I already mentioned. We have the proponent here. This is the project sponsor. For instance, if XYZ Nigeria Limited is building a refinery, a petroleum refinery at Lagos, Ogun State, for instance, or anywhere else within Nigeria, XYZ Nigeria Limited is the proponent, the project proponent. Then we have FMEMV, which is Federal Ministry of Environment, the administrator of environmental impact assessment. Then down here, we have the TOR. This is the terms of reference. I hope you can hear me okay. This is the terms of reference, the scope for the EIA. And then we have registered consultant here. This is like Richflood Environmental Consultants or any other consultants accredited by the federal government of Nigeria. Then we have, what else do we have over here? I think that is all from here. LGAs, that's local government area in Nigeria. EIS, that's environmental impact statement. EA department, that's environmental assessment department. Anything else left out? I don't see so. Therefore, we just dive in straight into the subject matter, and we have very limited time to take us through this. So typically, when you approach Richflood International Limited and say, I want to do an environmental impact assessment, and the project is situated in Nigeria. So we pull out some of these procedures for Nigeria, and we begin the execution in line with this flow chart. So this may not be very comprehensive, and by way of reference, this was picked from the website of Federal Ministry of Environment. And the next material I'll be sharing with you, which is the EIA Act, is also downloaded from the Federal Ministry of Environment website. All right. So at this first stage, when we are approached to execute an environmental impact assessment, we review the project and see the environmental component of the project, the location. Is it in an environmentally sensitive area, ESA, or where precisely is this project located? What are the initial environmental concerns or benefits, impact, effect? What ecosystem is going to be affected due to the location of this project? Is this economically viable? Is it socially going to be stable? These three components of sustainability or sustainable development is what we screen as Richflood at this stage, looking through the project proposal. And then from this initial checks, we develop the terms of reference. On this chart, you will see the Federal Ministry of Environment referring to the project proponent. In most cases, Richflood develops the terms of reference for the EIA study and submits it to the Federal Ministry of Environment with a payment of 50,000 Naira. Very quickly now, let me show you the registration form that accompanies this package going to the Federal Ministry of Environment. And I'm happy to do this presentation because most of our clients will ask or will want to know where this document is going and why are we including some other attachments to go with it. At this stage also, while I'm trying to pull out the form, we usually will request for locational maps, layout plans, coordinates of the project location. We may not necessarily visit the site, but if it's accessible, easily accessible, we prefer to visit the site and see what can be observed during the reconnaissance visit. Pardon me, I'm trying to pull out the registration form for environmental impact assessment in Nigeria. So it seems not to be handy in the process. If I am able to find it, I will share this with us, but it's a form that you basically inform the Federal Ministry of Environment about the project in a summary. Oh yes, I found it. I now found it. So let me pull that out in a moment. It's good you see it because we get the request and sometimes we do not have the opportunity to show you what it looks like, but I would make this available in the comment section so you can download it, okay? Okay, so here we are. This is page 1 of the form to be completed in duplicate. This is the EIA form. So let's go to page 2. This is page 2. I hope you can see my screen okay. Over here, you are requested to provide the title of the proposed project. The title is very important, so we know what it is. And then some contact information, the location, the state and local government area, if possible, at the community. The brief description of the project, the brief description, this is a form. In the TOR that Richflood develops, we usually will explain, I think, up to 20, 25 pages, putting this together. But this is a form where we just put summarily describe the project, the source of raw material, the sector. It could be oil and gas sector, could be agriculture, could be aviation, could be mining, could be manufacturing, any sector that fits perfectly. You write it here. The lifespan, is it 25 years? Is it 100 years? Is it 200 years? There's a reason why this is being inquired by the Federal Ministry of Environment, because it's an indicator for so many other requirements when it comes to impacts assessment. The EIA preparers, here you write Richflood International or the consultant, in case you're not our client and you're watching this video. Then address, and that's it. So that is the EIA form. I had to show us because it's important you also cite it. So let's go back to our process flow charts, right? So I have explained this point. This is where we submit the form, and then we develop a terms of reference after reviewing the project proposal. And then we submit this to the Federal Ministry of Environment with the payment of 50,000 Naira. So we get this request. How much is environmental impact assessment in Nigeria? We get these questions a lot, even from those who are just learners. Depends on the consultant and depends on the project. Typically, I will just give a generic figure for each of the stages. Please don't quote me, it's a generic figure that you may be able to work with. So you have the 50,000 Naira, you pay through the TSA, Treasury single accounts or remitter.net. You make this payment to the Federal Ministry of Environment. Most of the payments are made through the TSA. And then you have the next stage here, which is the EIA initial environmental evaluation, which includes site verification. So when we have applied for the environmental impact assessment and submitted the document, the Federal Ministry of Environment gets back to us and says, okay, it's time to go for site verification. They also want to further evaluate the project proposal, cite the location, and do an initial environmental evaluation of what the project is all about and possible impact it could have. Initial evaluation. Then we move forward to review confirmation of the scope. So here, the Richflood presents the scope of work, in other words, the terms of reference, to the Federal Ministry of Environment, saying that, yes, we have done this review and this is the scope of work that we think we should adopt. So FME does this review and approves or asks for an upgrade of the scope. And then we adopt for the scope of the study. All right. Then the next stage is approved, yes. Then we move to the EIA execution by Richflood. So over here, we are going to have a lot of work to be done, a whole lot of work to be done at this stage, but this will be executed by different consultants, biodiversity consultant, archaeologist, mining engineer, geophysicist, botanist, chemist, depending on the roles and duties that has been assigned to each consultant. So a detailed scope of work is actually being developed for each consultant on the team. If time permits me, I may show you the list of preparers and how we usually will group the studies to be on the setting. So that's it's. Can you still hear me? I hope so. All right. So that's for the execution. I will show us the checklist. This is an in-house document, but I would show it to us for the purpose of learning so that you see what needs to be done, by who. And though the version I'll be sharing with you is being modified currently, it's been modified to include some other aspects of the studies. But this is just mentioned as a ladder here, but it's much, much more bigger than this. That is where the whole work is done. That is where you have 2 seasons across the wet and the dry season, studies are being executed. That's in a span of maybe 6 to 7 months. All right. Then when all of this work is done, you submit to the Federal Ministry of Environment. Oh, I made a promise to mention financials. Let me just go back and mention a little bit of it. So here you have the 50,000 statutory fees only is what I'm referring to here, not consultancy fees. So here you have, you should budget around 500 to 600,000 naira over here for this, for the Federal Ministry of Environment paid to the TSA as well. Another 500,000 naira over here, conservatively. All right. Please, 1 second, please. Thank you very much for your patience. So that's a budget you have around here. Approval of the TOR, this is not paid for. Execution, this is where you pay Richflood. This is where you pay the consultant. And then submission of the draft EIA, payment of 500. You can see that captured here. And then I think this has been reviewed and you do not make this payment here. Well, like I said, this may have been updated. So anytime you're looking for the flow chart or the procedural guideline or the financials, you have to send a mail to Richflood so we can send you the current breakdown of what is expected from the federal, by the Federal Ministry of Environment, okay? The review of draft EIA reports by Federal Ministry of Environment, that's where we are now. At this stage, we have in-house review, public review, panel review. Okay, so in-house review is done at the Federal Ministry of Environment. Public review, 21 days display, means that the project will be published in at least 3 national newspapers, dailies, and 3 national newspapers, please. Once, one time publication in the national newspapers, but 3 of it. And then local newspapers, maybe 2 or 3 also. And then radio jingles in the community or local government where this project is going to be cited. And where else? The report is kept in specific locations where the public can have access to the report. And then you have the panel review. At this point, we have some panelists come together, experts panelists from the academia, from the industry. For instance, you have the biodiversity expert, you have the geographer, you have the agriculturist, if it's an agriculture project, you have the botanist, you have different experts sit down and look at different aspects of the report produced by the consultants during this execution stage, the draft report, and then they come up with comments. The public will come up with comments, the Ministry of Environment itself will come up with comments, and then the additional consultant brought in by the Federal Ministry of Environment at the panel review will also come up with their comments. This comments is harmonized and communicated to Richflood, or if you like, to the proponent. Then FME furnished a review report and a provisional approval to the proponent. Once the proponent starts, once the panel review is completed, there is, practically speaking, there is the harmonized comment that comes to Richflood, and then we update the report. to a final state and start warming up to submit it to the ministry. But just before submitting the final reports to the ministry, proponent starts preparatory works on the project site and prepares the final EIA report. Now, I have some questions coming up that at what point can we start our project on site? Because we have some proponents coming to say, I want to do an EIA. And then when we go visit the site, we see that the project is already halfway gone. This is a violation of the EIA Act. So I'd like to say that environmental impact assessment is to commence and advance and almost concluded before you can go start preparatory works on site, before you clear the trees, before you create the road, before you erect structures, before you tamper with the environment. The EIA ought to be completed or almost completion, and almost at completion and at this stage, because this is now officially mentioned. So once as we're preparing the final EIA report, what we call IMM, that is Impact Mitigation Monitoring, will take place. Federal Ministry of Environment, the state, the local government, selected stakeholders, and Richflood and the proponent representative will go to check the compliance level of the proponent. Don't forget, at this stage up here, the proponent starts preparatory works. So once the proponent starts preparatory work, we want to believe that the plan that was developed during the, documented in the EIA report have now commenced. The implementation of it have now commenced. That is the essence of the impact mitigation monitoring. We want to see if the proponent is mitigating this impact, is reducing this impact, is avoiding this impact as he starts the project execution. So that's the IMM. After this IMM, the final EIA report is submitted to the to the FME, and then the approval is being sought. So the EA department approves the EIA report and issues the environmental impact statement and the certificate. So I just remembered there's another question most people will ask. Who is responsible for the implementation of EIA, or rather the administration of the EIA in Nigeria? According to the EIA Act, it is the Federal Ministry of Environment that is the responsible agency or organization saddled with the responsibility to prepare the, to administer, work with the consultant, work with the proponent to execute the environmental impact assessment. Here you go, I promised to show us the EIA Act. This is 1992, so this has been updated with some slight changes, but I will just flip through this for us to understand what it means. Over here, the general principles of the EIA is being discussed, and you have objectives and different project categories that should be looked into for environmental impact assessment. I would like to, the screening, the scoping, the impact assessment, the way to conduct this is being discussed here, but I'm flipping directly to categories of projects. I hope I find that. I hope I haven't passed it. Mandatory study activities, yes. Because I have another question that people will ask and say, but this project is too small. Why should it go through environmental impact assessment? So in the Act, we have the mandatory study activities, the projects that have to go through the mandatory studies, which is agriculture, airports, that's the aviation sector, drainage and irrigation project, land reclamation project, fisheries, forestry, housing, industry, infrastructure, ports, mining, petroleum, power generation and the transmission of same, quarries, railways, transportation, railways, transportation, like road construction and all that. These are called linear projects. Okay. Then we have water, waste treatment and disposal. We have water supply over here. All right, I just wanted to show us that. So because we have that question all the time coming in. And then I would like to mention that there is also categorization of EIA. Some EIAs will go through 2 seasons. Let me try to find a slide to show us the brief presentation I prepared to show you. Is the EIA work plan that Richflood normally will use, but it's been updated right now. But I will still show it to you. If you can see my screen, I'm not sure. I'll just stop sharing it and share it again to be sure. Oh no. It is the checklist, or let me say a work plan for EIA execution in Nigeria that Richflood office in Nigeria would use for most projects. Okay, I found it. Yes, now it's showing. It's telling me no. This is a wrong one. I'm sorry. I need to minimize it. Okay. Where is it? This should be this. Thank you. That's it here. So I will be showing you a brief work plan and checklist that Richflood will use for environmental and social impact assessment. Another question I get is that why is this called ESIA while the EIA Act says EIA? This has been updated, I believe, to ESIA even in the EIA Act. But the S component is very important. Don't forget the pillars of sustainability. We have the environment, we have the social, then we have profits, if you like, economic. So these 3 pillars have to stand firm and stand well and be well taken care of. They're the 3 aspects of every activity, every human activity. So S cannot be minimized. S means people may be relocated, communities, engagements, as wide as you can mention. I'll show us shortly here. In the S component, you have the stakeholders mapping and the stakeholders engagement. All of this I have explained to you already. You can take a screenshot and study it more later. Stakeholders mapping, this file, which year is this, 2022? So like I said, it's been updated to be more comprehensive, but it's still useful for learning purposes. So we have the stakeholders engagement here, spanning across the entire period of the ESIA. So currently we have devised other means of engagement, both physical, online, and maybe some of you have received invitation to attend some of our online engagements, both for the states, for anybody interested parties. So during the stakeholders mapping, I will advise us also, if you're interested, to check learn.richflood.com, learn.richflood.com. That's the website where you can self-paste your learning. You can self-paste your learning, and we have a course on stakeholders engagement, so you will understand what stakeholders mapping really is, the process of mapping stakeholders and the processes of engaging stakeholders depending on the peculiarity of the stakeholders involved per project, So that is the time frame. I would like to talk more around here, where you can see 2 months for first season data gathering. This could be wet, this could be dry. So 2 months is being earmarked for, that's month 3 and month 4 for executing this. So this has been updated to include the archaeologists to increase the number of studies that, that takes place during this season. Okay, so I'm wrapping up. Then you have the second season also. This takes a month. And then you have all around here the public display activity. This takes 21 days. All right, that's here, ends here. That's almost a full month. All right. And then I have explained this earlier. That's why I'm skipping it and I'm going straight on into the conclusions. And then you have the statement here, because people say, but you say it's going to end in 10 months. This is getting too long. Yes, we have that complaint every now and then, but this is the explanation. Administrative processing time of all submissions at FME is not in our control, but dependent on the internal protocols, internal workload of the Federal Ministry of Environment. That's what determines the time frame for the issuance of the certificate. Maybe other factors too, but you know, this is the determinant of it. So we have this checklist also. You can screenshot it. This is an old one anyway, because we used to use the Kobo toolbox for our surveys, but we have now designed our own software that solves the problem even more than the Kobo toolbox, but you can still use it, and a guide on how to use it is available over here. For socioeconomic studies or the assessment of it, you have a checklist here, you know, on how to gather data, how to enter it into the Kobo toolbox. That's the social aspect of your studies, remember? So over here, and then we run videos, conferencing to engage more and more stakeholders as may be required on Zoom and other platforms. And then here's a checklist for the field mapping that is required for road, transport mapping, water bodies, farmlands, roads, railroad track within the project area of influence or within the project area as a whole. Georeferencing is very important. Everything you do, georeferencing is important. Even as the clients, we always like to educate us that whatever it is, it could be an archaeological study, it could be a burial ground. We want to know that it is there, and we want to georeference it in order to be able to design whatever it is that will be able to minimize the impact of relocating or destroying or tampering with those very, very special features on your project site. So where are we? More activities, GIS activities. All right. Then GIS maps. Yes, more on the checklist that we usually will adopt at Richflood. You have to have the land use, land cover. You have to do the flood vulnerability map and geologic map and environmental sensitivity index map. This has to be developed, as part of the assessment process. Then, okay, this is just test your computer, make sure it's working, just to make sure that the activities goes hitch-free as much as possible. Thank you very much. If you have any questions at all, you can send to info@richflood.com, or you can mail me directly. This is my phone number. You can call me also, and I would explain further. If you have a project, you can send us an email, the projects@richflood.com, project with s@richflood.com. And if you want to mail me directly on any issue, project or not project, comfort@richflood.com. Then if you want to take this further and learn more about any course, either stakeholders engagement, or you want us to customize a learning activity for your staff or for a set of people, learning@richflood.com. learning@richflood.com. Please send us a mail. All right. So thank you very much and see you some other time.